Tensions between Israel, Iran, now the United States and Russia. It is escalating, my friends. And the Daily Mail is reporting that Putin has stepped in, issuing a terrifying warning to Donald Trump after he gave Iran a threat: surrender or die. Wow, that's a heavy headline. Okay, let's slow down a little bit. Trump said, quote, unconditional surrender, which is a strange thing to say when you're not at war with the country. Who are they surrendering to? Israel? Now, there's fears that with this threat, Donald Trump is preparing military action, and we are seeing the U.S. mobilize assets into the region. And what CNN has reported is gearing up to militaristically intervene. Now, the Ayatollah has said, we will never surrender. And of course, the Daily Mail has this shocking front page story. All right, let's slow down. It's not Putin issuing this warning, and the warning isn't a threat of an escalation of war. The warning is, if the U.S. does intervene in the region, it's going to destabilize everything. So it's not necessarily that, well, first of all, it's not Vladimir Putin saying to Donald Trump, if you do this, I will come after you. No. It's a foreign minister saying, if you do this, you will completely destabilize the region, and the implications are as such. This will result in greater war. Now, we've got reports that China is circumventing the sanctions on Iran and shipping some kind of materials into Iran through freighters. We are now seeing the escalation, and the BRICS nations may very well be trying to get behind Iran in some fashion. We don't know for sure, but we'll start here with this story. Russia warns Trump against bombing Iran, and Ayatollah vows to never surrender. Russia warned the U.S. against even thinking about supporting Israel's attacks on Iran. That's hyperbole. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said on Wednesday that direct U.S. military assistance to Israel could radically destabilize the situation in the Middle East. Ryabkov said Russia cautions the U.S. against applying such assistance to Israel, as the ministry warned Israeli strikes on nuclear facilities had pushed the region millimeters away from catastrophe. The remarks came as the Ayatollah Khamenei issued a chilling threat to the U.S., warning that any U.S. military intervention will undoubtedly be accompanied by irreparable damage. This nation will not surrender to anyone in the face of imposition. The stark warning came as U.S. officials indicated that Iran has 24 to 48 hours to surrender and save itself from American intervention as President Trump considers joining Israel's war. Now, my question is, surrender to who? Who declared war? Surrender what? Serious question. What we are witnessing right now is Israeli airstrikes in Iran. Now, Israel does not have bunker busters. They do not have ordnance that will reach the deep underground military bases where Iran is producing fissile nuclear material. So what are they suggesting? Iran blow up their own nuclear plant? Because surrender would be stop launching missiles, I guess. They're going to say White House officials said the next 2 days will be critical in determining whether Washington and Tehran can find a diplomatic solution to the burgeoning crisis in the Middle East. Trump posted on Truth Social yesterday that he knew where Iran's supreme leader, Ali Hosseini Khamenei, is hiding, but would not launch a strike yet. He then added unconditional surrender. However, Khamenei stated Iran will never surrender, and U.S. intervention will be met with irreparable damage. Welcome to the Rock and the Hard Place, my friends. The U.S. cannot take out Khamenei. I mean, they physically could. We could turn the whole region to glass. That would be mutually assured destruction. If the U.S. were to take out Khamenei, the government would collapse into chaos and civil war. And certainly, this may mean that there's no nuclear weapon in Iran, but it means that whatever weapons they got will go chaotic. But put it this way. There's a guy standing in front of you, and he's got 15 guns on him. And you know who he is, and you're kind of worried he's nuts, but he ain't doing nothing yet. And he's going to pick up a bazooka, and you're like, hey, man, don't pick that one up. Now, the issue is, without Khomeini in command, in control of Iran, all these weapons that they have that are currently under the control of this government will spread out. You will get the biggest civil war we've seen on this planet in a very long time. You will get ISIS times 10. These extremist Islamists will take the weapons, they'll start spreading them across the region, and it will be bedlam. That's why Khomeini's saying, I ain't surrendering. Do it. He's calling the US's bluff. He says, without me, this whole nation, 90 million people, it's going to collapse. Sure, you can try and go in and engage in regime change. It's not possible. I'm going to say this. You know, the biggest fear that most of us have, regime change, interventionary conflict. We are sick of the United States saying we're going to invade a nation, remove its government, and put in a new government. You ain't doing that in Iran. That's not going to happen. We are not talking about Iraq and Afghanistan. We are talking about a mountainous 90 million person nation. And you go in there and you remove the government from Tehran, and you're going to split the country in half, and you are going to get 20 different factions, and you will be at war forever. The best bet the U.S. has is surrender. The question then is, will Khomeini recognize this? Honestly, I think he is. That's why he's saying no. Do it. You won't get what you want. In fact, you'll only make it worse. And that's the risk, I suppose. What does the U.S. hope to get out of all of this? Maybe Trump will call his bluff and say, sure, we'll destabilize the region and you will be dead. And that's war, my friends. A game of chicken, and who is going to back down? Now, yesterday, Trump had called for the unconditional surrender and threatened the Ayatollah. The New York Times says the decision to launch a full-on attack on Iran would be in the gray area between the president's powers as commander-in-chief and the Constitution's mandate that only Congress can declare war. You want to know how they get around all this? Because they're scumbags, by the way. Congress should be declaring war. Trump should not be able to deploy military assets without an authorization for use of military force. That's not a war declaration, I'm saying. You want to put military assets in the region, you need an AUMF. You want to actually strike Iran, you need a declaration of war. Now, there's some nuance there. If Trump gets an authorization for use of military force to deploy U.S. armed forces, say to the Strait of Hormuz, we're likely going to get attacked. Then Congress says, we've been attacked. Oh, heavens, we have to declare war. Then Trump gets his war. I get that. Either way, Congress has to be the one to say the United States is going to war. It's not going to happen, though. I guarantee what's going to happen. Well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say guarantee. In the event we get drawn into a protracted military conflict, what is likely going to happen is that U.S. assets and personnel will be attacked by Iran or Iranian-backed forces, which has already been happening for years, by the way. And then Trump's going to say, we will not allow rogue actors and terrorist states to kill our people. And then you're going to get intervention. Trump's not going to be a Joe Biden. He will not accept being a Joe Biden. And if American troops lose their lives, Trump will retaliate. And that's what they want. Now, I don't know if there's actually a plan for how you invade and capture a nation of 90 million people. Mountainous, nonetheless. How are you getting the troops in there? It is a mountainous nation. Moving troops there. This is why it's been so hard for the U.S. to control. You know, look, I shouldn't say the U.S., I should say the liberal economic order has tried desperately to control the region for a long time. With other nations, they go in, they remove the person in charge, gone. Or they bribe them. Iran won't take it because there is an ideological extremism. What's fascinating is the goal and the reason why, in my opinion, the left pushes degeneracy and hedonism, it's easy to control. You tell a person of strong moral conviction, we want control of your nation, and they say, no, you're an infidel or you're a blasphemer, whatever it may be. They will not let you guide their people down an amoral path. The conservatives in this country are a great example. Driven by a moral worldview and a sense of divine mandate, they are not going to accept this hedonistic degeneracy. Some do. They go to you and they say, we will trigger your dopamine. We will give you pleasures beyond human comprehension. Take it. It's temptation. Then what happens? You got a world leader and he says, all I want is beautiful women, lots of money, and I want everyone to love me. And they say, okay, we can make that happen. Do as we say. Build your nation out as we say. Take the loans we give you. And these world leaders sit back and they say, I'm rich forever. And they bask in their hedonistic degeneracy. And their nation is then sold off to the IMF. They are now beholden to the liberal economic order. That's the easy way. However, some people might say, it is my divine duty to protect my people and lead a righteous, moral nation. And they say, take the money. Take the money and let us control your country. And they say, no, because you're hedonistic degenerates and you're going to cause harm to my people. So they say, next step. That's the strategy. They try and bribe you. If that don't work, they try and remove you from office. If that don't work, then there's an intervention. It's the final straw. Now, the U.S. has tried regime change in a variety of ways. Strangling a nation through sanctions is the first attempt at regime change. They're hoping the people revolt, put in a new government, and say, just play ball. All we want is good food and clean living. We don't need this ideological war. Iran ain't having it. They ain't having it. So now the the liberal economic order says, then we need to remove this system of governance. How do you do it? If you do, the nation devolves into civil war and the region erupts. The bigger fear then is, if Iran is just chaos, where does China move in? Where does Russia move in? Because a nation that large, the U.S. may try and occupy certain territories, but like East and West Germany, you're going to have Russia and China on one side being like, we're taking this. The U.S. says, we're taking this. And then you've got Cold War II, which technically you never leave a Cold War. We've been in it for some time. The fear right now is not that there's an explicit threat from the BRICS nations to get involved, but an implicit one. If the region destabilizes, you can expect Russia, China, and I know, people are going to be like, Brazil, really? South Africa, maybe not, but Russia and China, they will make moves. And this could bubble up into something massive. There's a lot that's going to happen today. Trump was supposed to give an emergency address. They announced this last night, and then he canceled. Or maybe it was never going to happen. Who knows? The fog of war is thick, my friends, so we will sit back and wait and see. But I just say this. It's hard to know what's actually going on. It's hard to know what the right answer is. If you do not want us militaristically involved, it is important now more than ever that you speak up and get on social media. You share videos like this. You share whatever you can, because Trump is listening. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next segment.